you know, send the money to your Raiders, the Las Vegas Raiders. They could use it. They went 8-9 last season. No playoffs. Antonio Pierce taking over full time. Remember, took over last year, took over for Josh McDaniel because the guys just hated him and immediately took to Antonio Pierce. So we know now Gardner Minshew will be the starter. He was in a competition with Aiden O'Connell out of Purdue. And now Gardner Minshew will get the call for the Silver and Black to win the AFC West. They're 9-1 to win the AFC, 100-1 to win the Super Bowl, 150-1 to make the playoffs. Yes is plus 300. No is minus 375. If you're looking at the win total in the regular season, set at 6.5, juice to the over at minus 145. And I will say, when it comes to the Raiders, there's not a ton to like. But I feel like they are building a nice foundation as far as their draft picks, as far as some players offensively and defensively that they can sort of build around. And most importantly, they have a new head coach because Antonio Pierce turned that team around in the second half of the season where they weren't blowing guys out like gangbusters. They weren't incredible, but it's amazing how much better you can look and how much better you can play when you have a locker room behind you.
Oh, for sure. I think doing these season previews is a good thing because sometimes you rewrite history in your minds. And I said to myself, this is a really mid team, which if you look at last season overall, they only won eight games, but towards the end, they were a team that was playing with some passion and some fire. And I think I'm going to disagree with you a little bit and say I do think there are a lot of things to like about this Raiders team, namely on the defense. Because last year, despite, a very mid-season, they still ranked in the top 10 in EPA on the defense, ranking 7th in the NFL. And here's the thing. They, once again, are going to be a team that's very good at getting to opposing quarterbacks. Max Crosby, of course, last season had 14.5 sacks. And he's been really consistent. He had 12.5 sacks the year before. Then they added Christian Wilkins from the Miami Dolphins. And here's the other thing. Their special teams are really good, too. You look at what they do on the kicking game. Had one of the best punters in the NFL, A.J. Cole. I believe finished first in the NFL in net punting. Then Daniel Carlson has been good even from long range. So you combine those things together, and I think this is a team that all they need is a mediocre quarterback. So the question is, can Gardner Minshew just give you an average output to where he can drive the car? I think, there's chance that maybe the Raiders can be decent. Maybe they can be a playoff team. But a lot of it is in the hands of Gardner Minshew, which I don't feel great about.
Yeah, he'll be one of those guys where, he'll look good for a week or two, and then he'll lose a game or two. But he is a veteran in this league, and if he steps up, and like you were saying, if he's above average, they do have Devontae Adams. Jacoby Myers is okay, but I love Brock Bowers out of Georgia.
Brock
Bowers is a stud. Hell yeah is right, and I just can't help but think that he's going to have a huge season, and it does help that there are enough receivers on that team where you can't concentrate on him exclusively. And also, I will say in the backfield, Zamir White is very interesting to me. Because when he took over for Josh Jacobs at the end of last season, only 4 games, he led the NFL in rushing. So this is a kid out of Georgia who, if that offensive line does its job and White is effective again on the ground, you got a stud rookie in Bowers and Adams out there. So maybe if Gardner Minshew, like we were talking about, can play at a decent level, the Raiders' offense can be pretty good because last year they averaged only 19.5 points per game, one of the worst rates in the NFL. So this is an area in which they really need to improve.
Yeah, funny you bring up Zamir White because there is a betting angle in this one. Our friend John Ewing over at BetMGM tweeted this out, I believe, a couple weeks ago. 21% of the bets at BetMGM are on Zamir White to lead the league in rushing.
Whoa.
That's the most of any player in the NFL. It opened at plus 3,500. Now the odds have shortened to 25-1. Jenks, do you think this is relevant?
Yeah, I do. At that price, why not? Now, I think there are probably better bets out there. But again, this is all value-based. And if you look at how he performed last season, it wasn't like a 1 or 2 game sample size. When you're talking about a quarter of the season, that's significant, right? So Yeah, I think it's really smart. I think it's a smart bet because I feel like even though there's a lot of bets on him, like casual gamblers aren't necessarily familiar with his work just yet. So, yeah, I like that quite a bit. I thought it was a very mature response, and he reiterated a few times, I wish the best for Tua. I'm genuinely happy for him. But Flores is getting choked up at times, and I think it's apparent. He didn't deny anything. I think that's the one thing that was not said. He didn't deny anything that Tua said. He just said, I'm going to grow from this and get better, and got a little emotional at times talking about it, a little choked up.
I thought this was a very thoughtful and a very honest answer. And I think moving forward, I think you give the guy the benefit of the doubt. You know, maybe it was a coaching strategy, maybe he went down the wrong path. And I do think when you have a head coaching tenure and you don't do that well, like obviously he's not a head coach anymore, that you probably have some regrets. So I thought that it showed that he is, I'm not going to say like the bigger man here, but
Yeah.
they are both being really honest and really open. And here's the thing, you can learn from your mistakes. So maybe he did not think he was being that hard on Tua. But when I heard that we were going to hear something from Brian Flores, I thought this was going to go in a totally different direction. Because, Jenks, I don't know if you've heard the back and forth kind of on this discussion. There are a lot of people who are kind of taking Brian Flores' side, saying, this is football. If somebody criticizes you, get over it. You can't be soft as toilet paper in this situation. And that's kind of an old school approach to coaching, I believe. But I was surprised because when we talked about it, I thought it was pretty cut and dry. If you are diminishing the talent of your starting quarterback, I feel like that doesn't end well. Like, why would you want to tear down somebody who has to perform at a really high level? It doesn't make a ton of sense to me, but there are a lot of people kind of agreeing with Brian Flores and saying, Tua, you need to be stronger.
Well, I completely disagree with that. And I think that's a very black and white way to look at criticism, because you can be hard on someone and not insult someone. And reportedly, Brian Flores would text Tua Tagovailoa like the day before a game and say, don't blow it. Don't blow it tomorrow.
Oh.
And then would say to him, as Tua said, hey, you suck. Like, is that hard coaching? You suck? Or is that just an insult? Because you can coach someone, you can be hard on someone and say, you've got to get better. This is an area in which you need a lot of improvement. And if you don't improve, you're out of here. We don't have any time for this. We've got 2 weeks to get ready. And if you're not ready, you're done, man. Like, I'm tired of you making the same mistake over and over. There's a way to be hard on someone and not insult them personally. And I just hate when people look at it black and white and say, well, just be tougher. It's like, well, okay, you can be tough, but don't insult me and tell me I suck. How does that help you? If someone tells you you suck, how does that make you a better football player? It doesn't. And oh, by the way, Tua was right, because look at him now. Look at him now. And also, not every player responds to the same type of coaching. And that, to me, is where Brian Flores made a mistake, where Tua was not performing. He was not doing well. He was struggling. He was getting concussed. Like, all these different things were not going his direction. So that's on Brian Flores to say, okay, this approach isn't making things better. Let me shift things now. He never did that. So in my view, I think Tua is completely right.